You're an embarrassment, Elena. Sit down, shut up, and try not to ruin Victoria's engagement dinner the way you ruin everything else. Those were the words Margaret Whitmore hissed into her youngest daughter's ear the moment Elena stepped into the dining room, and she said them with a smile so sweet that anyone watching from across the marble foyer would have sworn a mother was welcoming her child home. Elena felt the words slice through her the way they always did, clean and practiced, and she lowered her eyes to the floor because that was what she had been trained to do for 26 years. What none of them knew, not Margaret, not Victoria, not the father who had not looked at Elena in months, was that before the clock struck 9 that evening, a man with ice in his eyes and blood on his name would walk into that dining room and change the entire order of the Whitmore family forever. Before we go any further, if you love a story about a woman who was crushed for years and finally rises, please tap that subscribe button and hit the little bell beside it so you never miss a chapter. And tell me in the comments which city you are listening from tonight. I want to see how far this story has traveled, and I read every single name. Now let us begin. Elena Whitmore had spent her whole life learning how to become smaller. Smaller at the dinner table where her elbows were never allowed to rest. Smaller in photographs where Victoria always stood center and Elena was nudged to the side like an afterthought. Smaller in conversations where her opinions were interrupted before she could finish a sentence. By the time she was 26, she had perfected the art of disappearing while still being in the room, and her family had come to rely on it the way a person relies on a light switch. Flip her off, flip her on. She was useful only in the way furniture was useful. That night, the Whitmore estate on the north shore of Long Island was lit up like a wedding cake. 300 guests. A string quartet. Imported oysters flown in from a coast Elena would never see. Her mother, Margaret, had planned every detail for months because tonight was the night Victoria, the golden daughter, would be officially announced as the future bride of Adrien Vulkov. Even Elena, who rarely paid attention to the dark whispers of New York's underworld, knew that name. Everyone did. He was the man who owned half the private banks on the East Coast and was rumored to own the other half through people who were too afraid to say no. He was the man who walked into restaurants and the owners stopped breathing. He was the man no father willingly handed his daughter to unless that father had something to gain, and Richard Whitmore had everything to gain. "Stand up straight, Elena," Margaret said, adjusting the strap of her own gown as she passed by. "And for the love of God, do not speak to him tonight. Not one word. Victoria has worked very hard for this." "Yes, Mother." "And smile, but not too much. You know how your smile looks when you try too hard." "Yes, Mother." Margaret paused, turned back, and looked at her youngest daughter, the way a woman looks at a stain on a tablecloth she cannot quite get out. Then she walked away to greet the Vulkov family at the door. Elena stood there with her hands folded in front of her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with the guest of honor. It was her sister's voice she was dreading, not his. Well, look who remembered the dress code. Victoria floated toward her in a column of red silk, her hair twisted into a crown of curls, her diamonds catching the light like little shards of stolen stars. She was stunning. She always had been. Elena had grown up watching men walk into walls because of that face, and she had grown up listening to her mother explain that God had simply given Victoria more. More beauty, more brains, more of everything. "You look nice, Victoria," Elena said quietly. "I know." Victoria smiled, taking a glass of champagne from a passing tray without looking at the server. "I told Mama to seat you at the far end of the table, by the way, near the kitchen door. I did not want Adrien to feel crowded." "That is fine. Of course it is fine. Everything is fine with you, Elena. That is the one thing I can count on." Victoria leaned in, and for a moment, Elena thought her sister might actually hug her. Instead, Victoria lowered her voice to a whisper that only the two of them could hear. "Do not embarrass me tonight. This is the biggest night of my life. If you so much as breathe wrong, I will make sure you live in the pool house until you are 40. Am I clear, Crystal?" "Good girl." Victoria tapped Elena once on the cheek with 2 fingers, the way a woman pats a dog that has finally learned to sit, and then she glided away, leaving a trail of perfume that smelled like money and contempt. Elena walked to her seat at the far end of the table, past aunts who pretended not to see her, past uncles who had not spoken to her in years past, cousins who had been raised to believe she was the embarrassing one. She sat down. She folded her napkin in her lap, She stared at the crystal rim of her water glass and told herself that in 3 hours this would all be over and she could go up to her room and breathe again. At 8:32, the grand doors opened and the room went still. Adrien Vulkov walked in. He was a tall man, broader in the shoulders than the photograph suggested, with a face that looked like it had been carved out of winter. Dark hair combed back, a black suit so perfectly tailored that it seemed to be part of him rather than something he had put on. And his eyes, Elena noticed even from across the room, were a strange pale gray, the color of a lake in February just before it froze solid. He did not smile. Behind him walked two men in darker suits. Their jackets fitted in a way that suggested they were carrying things the invited guests did not want to think about. The string quartet stumbled for half a beat and then kept playing. "Mr. Vulkov," Richard Whitmore boomed, striding forward with his hand outstretched. "Welcome, welcome. We are so honored to host you tonight." Adrien shook his hand once firmly and said nothing. Margaret appeared at her husband's elbow, practically glowing. "And may I present my daughter, Victoria, your beautiful bride-to-be?" Victoria stepped forward and performed the smile she had practiced in the mirror for a week. She offered her hand like a gift palm, down fingers, elegant. Adrien looked at her hand. He did not take it. A tiny ripple went through the room, but most people were too polished to let it show. Victoria's smile flickered for one dangerous second and then restored itself. "Mr. Vulkov, it is such a pleasure to finally meet you in person," Victoria said. "I have heard so much." "I am sure you have," Adrien said. His voice was low, flat, the kind of voice that did not raise itself for anyone. "Let us sit." "Of course, right this way." Victoria guided him toward the seat of honor at the head of the table placed beside her own. Adrien sat. The rest of the room sat. Servers began moving with trays of the first course, little silver domes being lifted in unison, a choreography Margaret had paid extra for. Elena did not touch her food. She watched her sister across the long table. She watched her mother. She watched her father, who kept glancing at Adrien with the expression of a man whose bank account was being weighed in real time. And then somewhere between the oysters and the soup course, Adrien turned his head and looked directly down the length of the table, and his cold gray eyes landed on Elena. He held the look. She froze. She did not know what to do with her face. Nobody looked at her at these things. She had spent so many years preparing to be unseen that being seen felt like being caught. Adrien looked away. Elena let out the breath she had been holding and picked up her water glass to hide the tremor in her hand. She told herself it was nothing. A stranger had accidentally looked at her. That was all. Her heart did not agree, but her heart had been wrong about many things before. The dinner moved on. The speeches began. Friends, family, esteemed guests. Richard Whitmore stood at the head of the table, his wineglass raised, his cheeks red with pride. "Tonight, the Whitmore family welcomes the Vulkov family, and in doing so, we unite two legacies that will shape the future of this city for decades to come." Polite applause. "My daughter Victoria has grown into a woman of extraordinary beauty, intelligence, and grace. Any man would be lucky to call her his wife, but tonight one man will." He turned toward Adrien with a bow of his head. "Mr. Vulkov, we are honored beyond words." To Adrien and Victoria. To Adrien and Victoria, the room echoed. Glasses lifted, glasses clinked. Victoria beamed beside Adrien, placing her hand over his on the table. He did not return the touch. He did not move his hand either. He simply sat there watching the rim of his untouched wine. Richard gestured to him. "Mr. Vulkov, perhaps a few words." Adrien rose. The room went very quiet. He buttoned his jacket with one slow, precise motion, and when he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the dining room without him ever raising it. "I thank the Whitmore family for their hospitality tonight." He paused. "But I am afraid I cannot accept this engagement." A sound went through the room like a cracked window. Margaret's face drained of color so fast, Elena thought for a moment her mother had stopped breathing. Victoria laughed. An actual laugh. A short, confused, disbelieving laugh. "I am sorry. What? I said I cannot accept this engagement," Adrien repeated calmly, as if repeating the time of day. Richard stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "Mr. Vulkov, I am certain there has been some misunderstanding. Perhaps we could step into the study and discuss." "There is no misunderstanding. But the contract was for a Whitmore daughter." Adrien's eyes moved once again down the table. And I have decided which daughter it will be. Elena's stomach dropped. No, she whispered without meaning to. Adrien's gaze fixed on her. Everyone in the room turned. 300 heads, 600 eyes, all of them at once aimed at the girl at the far end of the table. Elena Whitmore, Adrien said. No, Margaret breathed. No, 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 this is a mistake. Mr. Vulkov, that is my other daughter. Elena is, she is not. She is not what? Adrien asked, his voice suddenly edged with something colder. Margaret could not finish the sentence, because every word she had ever spoken about Elena in private would have been the wrong thing to say in public. Victoria stood up. The red silk of her dress rustled. Her face had gone a shade of white Elena had never seen before. This is a joke, Victoria said. This is not funny, Adrien. We have a contract. Our families have a contract. The contract is with your father. The contract is about me. The contract, Adrien said, is about a marriage. It did not specify which sister. I checked. You checked? Victoria laughed again, but it was a broken sound now. You checked. I did. Then you are insane. You do not know her. You have never spoken to her. She is nothing. She is a shadow. She is nobody. The word nobody rang through the dining room and landed on Elena the way it had landed on her every day of her life. But this time something was different. This time Adrien Vulkov turned his head very slowly and looked at Victoria. Say that again, he said quietly. Victoria blinked. Say it again, he repeated. Call her nobody, one more time. Adrien. Call her that one more time, he said, and I will make sure your father does not survive what happens next. The room went so silent, Elena could hear the ice melting in someone's water glass. Richard, white as paper, stammered, Mr. Vulkov, please, there is no need. There is every need. Your daughter just insulted my future wife in front of her own family, and the three of you have not even corrected her. Future wife, Margaret choked out. You cannot mean. I mean exactly what I said. Elena felt her chair move, but she realized it was not the chair. It was her own body starting to slide. She caught herself on the edge of the table. Her fingers were numb. Adrien walked. He did not rush. He walked the length of the long table the way a man walks through his own house, and every person he passed sat a little straighter in their seat. He stopped beside Elena's chair. Miss Whitmore? She looked up. Up close, his eyes were not cold. They were measured. They were deliberate, but they were not cruel. Please stand, he said. She stood. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else. You have been watched for some time, he said, not loud, not soft, just honest. By me, by my associates, by people whose job it is to know the truth about a family before an agreement is made. And I will tell you what they found. They found that your sister has been living off a reputation she did not earn. They found that your mother is cruel in private and charming in public. They found that your father owes money to men I would not send my worst enemy to. He paused. And they found that you, Miss Whitmore, are the one person in this house who has done nothing to deserve what has been done to you. Elena could not speak. You have a choice, Adrien continued. You can sit back down at that chair and live the rest of your life at the far end of every table. Or you can walk out of this room with me tonight. Those are your two choices. I will not make this decision for you. Somewhere in the back of the room, a fork clattered against a plate. Margaret found her voice. Elena, do not you dare. Do not you dare do this to your sister. Victoria's eyes were burning now. Elena, look at me. Look at me. You will not take this from me. You cannot. You would not even know what to do with a man like him. You will ruin yourself. You will ruin all of us. Elena, her father said, and he said her name in a tone she had not heard from him in years, the tone of a man suddenly noticing a piece of furniture that turned out to be valuable. Elena, sweetheart, let us all sit down and talk about this calmly. Elena looked at her father. She looked at her mother. She looked at Victoria. She looked at Adrien Vulkov, who was waiting, who had said he would not make the choice for her. For the first time in 26 years, Elena Whitmore realized that someone was waiting for her answer. Not her mother's answer delivered through her mouth, not her sister's answer, hers, her own. Elena, Margaret said again, sharper now, sit down, this instant. Elena looked at her mother, and she said very quietly, no. The room made a sound like something breaking. No, Margaret repeated. No, mother? Elena. I said no. Victoria was crying now, or pretending to. It was hard to tell with Victoria. Adrien, please, please do not do this. You do not know what she is. She is sick. She is unstable. She has always been jealous of me. This is pathetic. Adrien did not even turn his head. He kept his eyes on Elena. Is what she says true? He asked. No, Elena said. Then we are leaving. He held out his arm. Elena looked at the arm. Black wool sleeve, a thin line of white cuff, a simple steel watch. A hand that had probably signed the end of more than one life, and yet was being offered to her now with more dignity than her own father had ever offered her. She placed her hand on his arm. Margaret let out a wail that sounded like an animal. Victoria screamed, "You are a coward, Elena. You are a coward, and you are a snake, and you will regret this every single day for the rest of your miserable." Enough, Adrien said. Just that one word, not loud. Victoria stopped talking. Adrien turned Elena gently toward the doors. The two men in dark suits had already moved to open them. The string quartet had stopped playing some time ago, though Elena could not remember when. 300 guests watched Elena Whitmore walk the length of the dining room on the arm of Adrien Vulkov. Her mother watched. Her sister watched. Her father watched. And as Elena reached the great doors, as the cold night air slipped in and touched her skin, she heard her mother's voice one last time behind her, low and vicious. You are dead to this family, Elena. Do you hear me? Dead. Elena did not turn around. She walked out of the house that had raised her, and she did not look back. And in that moment, though her hand trembled on the stranger's arm, and her heart pounded so hard she thought it would crack her ribs, she felt something she had not felt in her entire life. She felt chosen. The great doors closed behind them with a deep, heavy sound, and the cold of the night wrapped around her like a second skin. A long black car was waiting at the bottom of the steps, engine running, a driver already holding the back door open. Get in, Adrien said. Elena hesitated. He noticed. You can still change your mind, he said quietly. The door is only open in one direction from here. I want you to understand that. Elena looked up at him. Why me? She asked. Her voice shook. Why not her? She is the one you were promised. She is the one everyone expects. Why me? Adrien looked at her for a long moment. Because I do not marry liars, Miss Whitmore, he said at last. And because the day I decided to watch your family, I watched a woman feed stray cats in the alley behind her father's house in the pouring rain at 2 a.m. She did not know anyone was watching. She did not do it for anyone's approval. She just did it because the cats were hungry. He paused. That is the woman I want at my side, not the one in the red dress. Elena felt her throat close. You saw that, she whispered. I saw that. No one is supposed to see me. I know. His voice had changed. It was not warm. He was not a warm man, but it had softened at the edges. I know that is what they taught you. They were wrong. He opened his hand. She put hers in it. She got in the car. The door closed. And behind the tinted window, Elena Whitmore watched the great lit-up mansion of her childhood shrink and vanish into the darkness, and she did not cry. She did not know what she was yet. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. She did not know what it meant to be the wife of a man like Adrien Vulkov, or what enemies she had just inherited, or what her mother and sister were saying about her right now inside that house. But she knew one thing. For the first time in her life, she was not the smaller one in the room. And somewhere in the city ahead, in a world she had never been allowed to touch, a life she had not asked for was waiting, and it had her name on it. The car glided through the dark streets of Long Island for almost 6 minutes before Elena realized she had not taken a single full breath since she sat down. Adrien noticed. Adrien noticed everything. Breathe, Miss Whitmore. I am breathing. You are not. You are holding air in your chest like it is going to protect you. It will not. Let it out. Elena exhaled slowly and her shoulders dropped half an inch, and she hated that a stranger could read her body better than her own mother ever had. Where are you taking me? She asked. Home. That is not home. It is now. She turned her face to the window. She watched the guardrails blur past, and she thought about the fact that somewhere behind her, in a dining room lit up like a wedding cake, her mother was probably already on the phone to a lawyer, and her sister was probably already on the phone to a reporter, and her father was probably already on the phone to whoever he owed the most money to, trying to figure out how to salvage what was left of his name. Adrien said without looking at her, "Your father called me 3 times already." "What?" "While you were sitting there staring at the window, your father called this phone 3 times. He tapped the edge of the black cell phone resting on the seat between them. I have not answered. I will not answer tonight. I want you to understand that whatever he says to me from this point forward, he is not speaking to you. You will not hear it from me, you will not read it, and you will not be asked to respond. Do you understand why? Because I know exactly what he is going to offer me, and I do not want you to ever hear a man put a price on you." Elena's throat tightened. She turned her face further toward the window so he would not see it. "You are very kind for someone who is supposed to be a monster," she said quietly. "I never said I was kind. I said I was going to protect you. Those are not the same thing." 8 minutes later, the car turned through a pair of iron gates that opened as if they had been waiting for them and rolled up a long private drive and came to a smooth stop in front of a house that was not a house. It was an estate. It was the kind of place Elena had seen in magazines and assumed were owned by men who had inherited them 3 generations deep. "Is this yours?" she asked. "It is ours now. I do not have anything." "I know. I mean, I do not even have a toothbrush, Mr. Vulkov." "Adrien, I do not even have a toothbrush, Adrien. You have a toothbrush upstairs. You have clothes upstairs. You have a room upstairs. Everything was prepared 2 weeks ago." Elena turned her head slowly and looked at him. "2 weeks ago," she repeated. "Yes, you decided 2 weeks ago. I decided 4 weeks ago. I acted 2 weeks ago. You had my room prepared before you even met me. I met you, Elena. You just did not know it." She felt her stomach drop a second time that night. She thought about the alley behind her father's house. She thought about the peace. She thought about 100 small moments in the last month that she had written off as coincidence. A black car parked at the corner. A man in a charcoal coat at the flower market who had tipped his hat at her. A waiter at her usual coffee shop who had suddenly remembered her order without being told. "How long were you watching me?" "Long enough to be sure." "Sure of what?" Adrien looked at her for a long moment before he answered. "Sure that the woman in the red dress was wearing your life." Elena did not know what to do with that sentence. It sat in her chest like a stone thrown into a pond that had been still for 26 years. The car door opened. A man in a dark coat was waiting. Adrien stepped out first and then offered her his hand, and she took it because she did not know what else to do, and she stepped out into the cold air of a life she did not recognize. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her late 50s stood there, gray hair pulled into a tight knot, a plain black dress, no jewelry, hands folded. "Good evening, sir. Mrs. Petrov, this is Miss Whitmore. She will be staying in the East Wing. She has nothing with her tonight. See that she has everything she needs by morning." "Yes, sir." "Elena, this is Mrs. Petrov. If you need anything any hour of the day or night, you come to her first. Not to the staff, not to anyone else. Her. Is that clear?" "Yes." "Good." He turned to the older woman. "And Mrs. Petrov." "Sir, she is not a guest. She is not an employee. She is the lady of this house." Mrs. Petrov's face did not move, but her eyes changed. Something in them softened by a single degree. "Yes, sir." Adrien nodded once, looked at Elena and said, "Go with her. Sleep. We will speak in the morning." "You are not." "I am not staying at the house tonight. I have things to attend to." "What thing, He paused, and for the first time since she had met him, Adrien Vulkov almost smiled. "Almost." "Things your father set in motion the moment you walked out of that dining room on my arm. Do not worry about them. That is my job now." He turned and walked back toward the car, and the coat of a man she had met only 3 hours ago disappeared into the dark, and Elena Whitmore stood in the doorway of a house she had never seen before and realized she was completely, entirely, impossibly alone. "Miss Whitmore?" "Yes." "This way." 20 minutes later, Elena sat on the edge of a bed that was bigger than her entire bedroom at home, in a nightgown that had been folded on her pillow, like it had been waiting for her in a room that smelled faintly of cedar and something floral she could not name, and she finally cried. She cried the way a person cries when they have been holding it in for so long they have forgotten how. ugly, shaking, silent at first, then not silent at all. She cried for the 26 years of being smaller. She cried for the bracelet her mother had broken on her wrist. She cried for the red welt she could still feel under her sleeve. She cried because a stranger had looked at her for 10 minutes and seen more of her than her own family had seen in a lifetime. And somewhere in the middle of it, she cried because she was afraid, because she did not know this man, because no one was kind for no reason, because every fairy tale Elena had ever read had taught her that a door that opens in only one direction is called a trap. She cried herself to sleep without meaning to, still dressed in the borrowed nightgown, still sitting up against the headboard, and when she opened her eyes again, it was 7 in the morning and someone was knocking softly at her door. "Miss Whitmore, breakfast is ready downstairs." "I will be right there." "Take your time. Mr. Vulkov is already seated." Elena's heart did a small, unwelcome stutter. She did not know why. She found a closet full of clothes in her. She picked the simplest dress she could find, a soft gray wool that fell to her knees, washed her face, pulled her hair back, and walked downstairs with the slow, deliberate steps of a woman trying to remember who she was supposed to be. Adrien was already at the table. He stood when she entered. No one had ever stood when Elena entered a room before. "Sit," he said. "Eat." "Good morning." "Good morning, you slept." "Not very well." "That is expected. It will be better tonight, and the night after that. Some things take time." She sat across from him. The table was too long for 2 people, but he had chosen to place them directly opposite each other, not at opposite ends, the way her family always ate. She found herself almost pathetically grateful for that small detail, and then she found herself angry that she was grateful for something so small. "Adrien?" "Yes." "We need to talk about what this is." "We are going to." "I mean, right now, I spent all night sitting in that bed, and I realized I said yes to a man I do not know in front of a family I have been afraid of my whole life because he told me I did not have to be smaller anymore. That is not enough. That is not enough to build a marriage on. I do not even know what you want from me." He set down his coffee. "Good. Good. Good that you are asking. It means you have not given up on yourself. I was a little worried. Do not patronize me." "I am not." "Then tell me, what is this?" He folded his hands. He looked at her the way a man looks at a document he intends to sign. "This is an arrangement your father did not know he was making. The contract he signed with me 2 months ago was for a Whitmore daughter, a marriage, a public one, a permanent one. Your father read the word Victoria into the contract because he wanted to. It is not in the contract. You may read it yourself if you like. My attorney will bring it to you today." "Why did you want a Whitmore daughter at all?" "Because your father is going to be arrested inside of 12 months, and when he is, every asset tied to the Whitmore name will be frozen, and I intend to own what is left before the government does." Elena felt the blood leave her face. "My father is going to be arrested." "Yes." "For what?" "For many things. I will not explain them at breakfast." "And you wanted to marry into that ad?" "I wanted to marry the woman inside of it. The rest was incidental." "Adrien." "Yes." "I am not a transaction." "I know." "Then why are you describing this like one?" He paused. "Because if I described it any other way, you would not trust me. You would think I was lying. You grew up in a house where kind words were used as knives. I will not use kind words on you until you ask me to. Until then, you will get the truth, plainly, even when it is ugly. Is that acceptable?" Elena swallowed. "Yes." "Good." He picked up his coffee again. "Now eat." She ate. She did not taste any of it. At 9:42 that morning, Mrs. Petrov came into the dining room with a silver tray and a white envelope on it. "Sir, this arrived at the gate." "Open it." Mrs. Petrov opened it, read the single folded sheet, and her face tightened. "It is from Mrs. Whitmore, sir, addressed to Miss Elena." "Read it?" "Sir, I am not sure." "Read it, Mrs. Petrov." Mrs. Petrov cleared her throat and read in a voice carefully flattened of feeling. "Elena, you have 48 hours to return home and undo this mistake. If you do not, your sister will be on every front page in New York by Monday, explaining why her younger sister seduced her fiancé the night of their engagement dinner. Do not test me. Signed, Mother." The silver spoon in Elena's hand made a small, sharp sound against the edge of her plate. Adrien did not move. He did not raise his voice. He did not even look at the letter. He looked at Elena. What do you want to do? What? What do you want to do, Elena? I do not. You have three options. First, you go back. You undo this. You sit at the far end of every table for the rest of your life. Second, you stay here and we let her run the story and we let the city call you a seductress for a week and then we let my people make sure no one ever prints your name without my permission again. Third, he said, you stand up. I do not understand. I mean, you stand up today. We go into New York. You walk into the lobby of the plaza on my arm. Photographers will be there, not by accident. And by 3 o'clock this afternoon, your mother's threat will be pointless because the story will already be out and it will not be her story. It will be yours. She will hate me forever. She already hates you, Elena. She has hated you since you were a child. You did not cause it. You cannot cure it. You can only stop paying for it. Elena stared at the letter in Mrs. Petrov's hand. She thought about her mother writing those words, sitting at her little antique desk, choosing the stationery, folding the paper, sealing the envelope, having a driver take it across the city at dawn. She thought about Victoria sitting somewhere in that house right now, in yesterday's ruined makeup, already rehearsing the speech she would give to a reporter about her horrible sister. She thought about this bracelet. She thought about the welt under her sleeve, and something inside of her, something that had been holding on for 26 years, let go. Option 3, Elena said. You are sure? I am sure. Good. Adrien stood. Mrs. Petrov. Sir, call the car and call Nikolai. Tell him we will be at the plaza by 12:30. Tell him to have the lobby arranged. Yes, sir. And Mrs. Petrov. Sir. Burn the letter. She does not need to see it again. Yes, sir. At 11:20 that morning, a stylist Elena had never met was standing in front of her with 3 dresses on a rolling rack in a look of intense concentration, and Elena was being asked to choose between navy cream and a deep burgundy red. Not the red, she said. Are you sure it is stunning on your? I am sure. Not the red. My sister wore red last night. The stylist paused, then nodded once crisply. Cream, then. It makes a statement. New beginnings. Untouched. It will photograph like a wedding announcement. That is exactly what it is going to be. By 12:15, Elena was in the back of the black car again, in a cream dress that fit her like it had been made for her, with her hair pinned back in a way she had never worn it before. And Adrien was beside her in a dark gray suit, and he was quiet, and she could tell he was watching her out of the corner of his eye. Stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you are waiting for me to break. I am not waiting for you to break. I am waiting for you to decide what you are going to say. To who? There will be one reporter inside, just one. A woman. She works for me. She will ask you 2 questions. You do not have to answer either of them. You can walk past her, or you can answer. Your choice. What are the questions? 1. Is it true that you are engaged to Adrien Vulkov? 2. What do you say to the people who claim you stole your sister's fiancé? Elena went very still. You already know what I should say. I do, but I want to hear what you say. She thought for a long time. The car turned onto 5th Avenue. The buildings got taller. The traffic got slower. I will say yes to the first one. And the second, I will say you cannot steal a man who was never hers to begin with. Adrien looked at her. He did not smile because he was not a man who smiled, but something in his face settled the way a wolf settles when it recognizes another wolf. Good. The car pulled up to the plaza at 12:28. A doorman opened the door. Camera flashes began before Elena's feet even touched the pavement, and she understood in one blinding second that Adrien had been lying when he said there would be one reporter. There were at least 20. She turned to him panicked. You said, I said one would ask questions. I did not say one would be there. I am sorry for the lie. You would not have walked out of the car if I had told you the truth. Adrien, eyes on me, Elena. I cannot do this. You can. You have been doing harder things your whole life. This is just louder. He offered his arm. She looked at it. She thought about her mother's letter. She thought about Victoria standing over her as a child, taking the last cookie off her plate and laughing. She thought about her father who had not hugged her since she was 11. She put her hand on Adrien's arm, and she walked. The flashes went off like a war. Voices shouted over each other. Miss Whitmore, is it true? Miss Whitmore, did you know? Miss Whitmore, what about your sister? Miss Whitmore, look here. Miss Whitmore, please. Elena did not stop until they reached the woman standing in the middle of the lobby with a single small recorder in her hand and a calm, professional expression that cut through the chaos like a knife. Miss Whitmore, is it true that you are engaged to Mr. Vulkov? Yes. And what do you say to the people who claim you stole your sister's fiancé? Elena lifted her chin. The flashes kept going. She did not blink. You cannot steal a man, she said clearly, who was never hers to begin with. A murmur went through the crowd. The reporter nodded once satisfied and stepped back. Adrien guided Elena forward through the lobby, past the desk, past the elevators, through a side corridor Elena had never noticed in her life, into a small private dining room, where the door closed behind them and the world went silent. Elena's legs gave out. Adrien caught her by the elbows before she hit the floor. Sit. I am going to be sick. You are not going to be sick. You are going to sit. You are going to drink this water, and you are going to listen to me for 1 minute. She sat. She drank. She listened. You just did something, he said, kneeling in front of her chair, so their eyes were level, that most women in this city would not have done if I offered them $1 million. Do you understand that? I do not feel brave. I feel like I am going to throw up. Those are the same thing, Elena. Every brave person I have ever known has thrown up first. She laughed. It came out broken and wet and surprised, but it was a laugh, and it was the first real one she could remember making in years. Adrien stood. He went to the small table in the corner, poured himself something darker than water, and came back. Your sister is going to call within the hour, he said. She will not be able to help herself. What do I do? Nothing. You let the phone ring. Today is not the day you speak to her. Today is the day she learns she cannot reach you anymore. And tomorrow. Tomorrow we go to dinner at the Astors, together, in public. And the night after that, the Carringtons. And the night after that, the governor's charity gala. By Friday, the city will know your name. By Monday, your mother's threat will be ashes. And after that, he looked at her for a long moment. After that, he said, we start figuring out who you are when nobody is trying to make you smaller. Elena's eyes filled. She did not let them spill. Adrien. Yes. Why are you being so careful with me? He thought about the question seriously before he answered. Not a line, not a script, a real answer. Because the last time someone I loved asked me to be careful with her, he said I was not. And she did not get a second chance. You are getting one whether you asked for it or not. Elena did not know what to do with that. She did not ask. She felt without understanding why that she was not supposed to ask tonight. Maybe not for a long time, maybe not ever. But the air between them had changed. And somewhere in New York, in a house on the North Shore of Long Island, a phone was already ringing off the hook, and Victoria Whitmore was already screaming at her mother, and Margaret was already pacing in front of a television that was replaying her younger daughter's face on every channel, and Richard Whitmore was already pouring his second glass of bourbon before noon. And in a small, private dining room at the Plaza, Elena Whitmore took a breath that finally reached the bottom of her lungs. Orchestrated dramatic narrative continuation with emotional depth and strategic pacing. Beats. Orchestrated dramatic narrative continuation with emotional depth and strategic pacing beats. The phone started ringing at exactly 1:17 in the afternoon. Elena was still sitting in the small, private dining room at the Plaza when Mrs. Petrov's voice came through the line, calm as ever, but with something underneath it that had not been there before. Miss Elena, your sister has called the house 11 times in the last 40 minutes. 11. Yes, miss. What is she saying? I would rather not repeat it, miss. Mrs. Petrov, tell me. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Elena could hear the older woman choosing her words the way a person chooses stones to cross a river. She is saying that she will burn this house to the ground with you in it, miss. Those were her exact words. She has said them 4 times. Elena closed her eyes. Does Adrien know? Mr. Vulkov is aware. He instructed me to tell you only if you asked. I am asking. Then now you know. Elena set the phone down on the little table in front of her. Adrien was across the room on his own phone, speaking quietly in a language Elena did not recognize. Russian, maybe, or something close to it. He finished his call, turned, and read her face in 1 second. She called. 11 times, Bashano. And she said she would burn the house down with me in it. Adrien did not react the way Elena expected. He did not get angry. He did not get protective. He sat down across from her, folded his hands, and asked her a question that landed like a small, quiet slap. Do you believe her? What? Do you believe she would do it, Elena? Think carefully. You grew up with her. I did not. I only know the woman I watched. You know the one behind the door. Would she actually do it? Elena stared at him. I do not know. Then I will have people at the gate tonight. 4 of them, not 2, and 1 on the roof. Adrien. Yes. You are frightening me. I would rather frighten you a little today than bury you tomorrow. That is who I am. You are going to have to get used to that part. She swallowed. Okay. At 2:05, her phone buzzed in her purse. A text message. From Victoria. Elena had not deleted her sister's number yet. She had not had the courage. She pulled it out and read the message with Adrien watching her. It said, Mother is in the hospital because of you. Congratulations. Elena felt the floor tilt. Adrien. What? She says my mother is in the hospital. Adrien held out his hand. She gave him the phone. He read the message. He did not blink. Your mother is not in the hospital, Elena. How do you know? Because I have a man watching your mother's house as of 7 this morning, and he would have called me the moment an ambulance pulled into the drive. Nothing has happened. Your sister is lying to you. Why? Because she knows it is the only thing that will make you pick up that phone. Elena pressed her fingers into her eyes. I almost did. I know. I almost called her. I know. That is why I told you the truth. Now you will not. He handed the phone back to her. She held it in her hand like a live thing. Delete the message, he said. I cannot. Elena, I cannot. If she texts again, I have to be able to see it. He studied her for a long moment. Then block her number for today, only today. You can unblock it tomorrow morning if you want to. But for the next 16 hours, she does not speak to you. Not by phone, not by message, not by letter, not by person. Today is for you. Elena looked at the screen. Her thumb hovered. She pressed block. The little red bar appeared. She exhaled. There, Adrien said. You just did the second hardest thing you have ever done in your life. What was the first? Walking out of that dining room last night. She almost smiled. By 3:30 in the afternoon, the story was on every local channel in New York. Elena Whitmore, the younger sister, the cream dress, the sentence that everyone was repeating. You cannot steal a man who was never hers to begin with. Pundits argued about it on 2 different stations. A gossip columnist called it the line of the decade. A women's magazine called Elena's publicist asking for an exclusive by 5. Elena did not have a publicist. By 6 she did. Her name is Callista Marsh, Adrien said, handing Elena a thin folder. She is mine. She handles anything that touches my name in public. Starting today, she handles yours as well. You do not speak to a reporter without her approval. You do not walk into a restaurant without her having cleared it. You do not wear a dress in public that she has not seen first. Not because I do not trust you, because I do not trust them. Them, your sister, your mother, the people your father owes money to. The reporters they are already starting to buy. My father would not. Your father already has Elena. 2 of the calls I did not answer this morning were him offering me a reduced dowry if I would publicly reject you and take Victoria back. Elena felt her face go cold. He offered. Yes. He offered to give you Victoria back for less money. Yes. He said that out loud, on a phone, to you. On a phone, to a man who records every call, yes. Adrien, yes. You said this morning that you were not going to tell me the things he said to you. I said I was not going to tell you tonight. It is no longer tonight. It is a day later, and you are going to hear harder things than this before we are done. I wanted you to hear the first one while you were sitting down. Elena set the folder on the table and pressed her palms flat against it and did not speak for almost a full minute. I thought, she finally said, that on some small level, somewhere very deep down, he loved me. I am sure he does in whatever shape he is capable of. But that love is not stronger than his fear of going bankrupt. I am sorry, Elena. That is the truth. Did he mean it? What? The offer. Did he mean it, or was it just? He meant it. He was on the third call when he named a specific dollar amount. Elena laughed. It was a small, brittle, awful laugh, the kind that comes out of a person who has just discovered a truth they already knew and were only hoping they were wrong about. How much? Elena. How much, Adrien? Tell me what my father thinks I am worth. He hesitated. Tell me. He offered to knock $2 million off the original price if I took Victoria instead of you. Elena stared at the table. $2 million. That was the number her father had put on her face, on her life, on the 26 years he had spent watching her fold herself smaller at every dinner he had ever sat her at. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. I am done crying about him. Good. Today. Okay. I might cry about him again tomorrow. Also okay. She picked up the folder and opened it. Tell me about Callista Marsh. At 7:45, Callista Marsh walked into the east wing of Adrien's estate in a charcoal suit with her hair pulled back in a way that suggested she had not had time to think about it, and shook Elena's hand with the brisk confidence of a woman who had ended 20 reputations before breakfast. Miss Whitmore, I am sorry this is how we are meeting. Let us get to work. I have 2 hours before the Astors' dinner tomorrow night, and we have decisions to make. Decisions about what? Everything. Your hair, your voice, the way you shake a hand, the way you hold a fork, the way you laugh at a joke. Not because these things are wrong about you, because every one of them is going to be studied tomorrow by 300 very expensive pairs of eyes. I grew up going to dinners like that, Miss Marsh. Yes, as furniture. Tomorrow you are going as the woman who shook Adrien Vulkov loose of the most beautiful engagement contract in the state of New York. That is a different chair, Miss Whitmore. Elena nodded. Okay. First question. Your sister is going to be there. Elena's stomach dropped. What? She RSVP'd 2 months ago as part of the original couple. Claudia Astor called me personally 40 minutes ago. She does not want to disinvite her because it would look like she was picking a side, but she also does not want a scene. She wants to know what you want her to do. Elena looked at Adrien. You knew. I found out 10 minutes ago. I was going to tell you in the car tomorrow. You were going to let me walk into a room and find her there. I was going to tell you 60 seconds before the door opened, yes. So you did not have time to spend the whole day preparing speeches in your head that you would not end up using. That is what you have been doing since you were a child, Elena. Preparing speeches. I did not want you to start today. Elena looked at him for a long time. I do not know if I love that or hate that. You can decide later. Callista cleared her throat. So, Miss Whitmore, what do I tell Claudia Astor? Tell her I will be there. And if your sister approaches you in public, Elena thought about it. Then I will handle my sister in public. Callista lifted one eyebrow a quarter of an inch. I like her, Callista said to Adrien without looking at him. I told you. At 10:14 that night, long after Callista had gone home, long after Mrs. Petrov had set a tray of tea outside Elena's door and whispered goodnight through the wood, Elena was lying in the dark staring at the ceiling when there was a quiet knock. Yes, it is me. She sat up. Come in. Raj opened the door, but he did not come in. He stayed in the doorway. I am not going to step into your room. I want you to know that now, and I want you to know it every night. Okay. I came to tell you something. Okay. Your sister just showed up at the front gate. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. What? 15 minutes ago, she drove herself. She is outside screaming. She has been screaming for most of that time. What is she saying? Your name mostly, and some words I will not repeat to you. Adrien, I am not going to let her in. I wanted you to know she is there because you will be able to hear her from the East Wing window if you open it. I would prefer that you do not open it, but I am not going to make that decision for you. Elena's whole body was shaking. What does she want? She wants a fight. She wants you to come down. She wants you to scream back at her so she can tell everyone tomorrow that you are unstable. My people have told her to leave. She refuses. The police are on their way. They will remove her in about 9 minutes. By the time the sun comes up, this will be another story she loses. I want to see her. Elena. Not speak to her, just see her. I want to see her face. I do not recommend it. I know. He studied her. Come with me. She followed him down the long hallway in her borrowed nightgown, down a staircase through a corridor to a door with a small screen on the wall beside it glowing with a grainy gray image. The front gate. And in the image, Victoria Whitmore in yesterday's ruined dress, her hair loose, her makeup streaked, her hands wrapped around the iron bars, her mouth open, screaming something the screen did not have sound for. Elena stared. This was the woman who had ruled her life. The woman whose approval she had bent herself into knots trying to earn. The woman whose praise had been rarer than snow in July. The woman who, it turned out, was also just a girl in a ruined dress screaming at a gate in the middle of the night because for the first time in her life, someone had said no to her. Elena watched for almost 3 minutes. Turn it off! Adrien pressed a button. The screen went dark. Are you all right? No. What do you need? I need to sit down. They sat together on a low bench in the hallway. He did not touch her. He just sat beside her close enough that she could feel the heat of him far enough that she did not have to shrink away. Adrien. Yes. She was my hero when we were little. I know. She used to read to me. She used to braid my hair. She used to tell me that when we grew up, we were going to have houses next door to each other and our children were going to be best friends. I know. When did she change? I think, Adrien said carefully, that your mother broke her before your mother broke you. I think she learned very young that there was only so much love in that house and that she would have to take yours to keep her own. I am not excusing her, Vulkov. I am just telling you what I suspect. Elena closed her eyes. I do not want to hate her. Then do not. How? Stop needing her. Hate always comes from needing. You stop needing her, you stop hating her. You start pitying her instead, which is worse for her and better for you. Adrien. Yes. Who taught you that? He was quiet for a long time. My sister, he said finally. Elena opened her eyes. You have a sister. Had. Oh, yes. You was that. Yes. The woman you said you were not careful enough with. Yes. Elena did not say I am sorry because, as she had learned a long time ago, that those 2 words were the laziest thing a person could say, and Adrien Vulkov was not a man you gave lazy words to. Instead, she did something she had not done since she was 7 years old. She reached over slowly and placed her hand on top of his. He did not move. He did not pull away. He did not turn his hand over and take hers. He just sat there very still and let her hand rest on top of his, and after a long moment, he said in a voice so quiet she almost missed it, "Thank you." Somewhere outside, Elena could hear the faint wail of a police siren in the distance. By 11:30, Victoria was gone. The report came in that she had been driven back to her parents' house by an officer who had known her father for 15 years and was not going to arrest her on a first offense. She had screamed the entire ride home. Elena was back in her bed. She was not sleeping. She was staring at the ceiling again, but the ceiling was different now. It was no longer the ceiling of a stranger's house. It was the ceiling of a place she had chosen. That was a small difference. It was also the only difference that mattered. Her phone buzzed. Callista. Go to sleep, Miss Whitmore. Tomorrow is the biggest day of your life until the next biggest day of your life. I have laid out 4 dresses. Pick the blue one. Do not argue with me. Good night. Elena almost laughed. She slept. At 7 the next morning, the newspaper hit every doorstep on the East Coast with a front-page photograph of Elena in cream at the plaza and a headline that read, "The Younger Whitmore." She was not for the first time in her life the other one. She was the one. She read the article 3 times at the breakfast table. Adrien watched her read it. Well, it is not exactly flattering. The tone does not matter. The placement does. You are on the front page and she is not mentioned until the 6th paragraph. By tomorrow, she will not be mentioned at all. By next week, she will be a footnote. That is how this works. Adrien. Yes. Are we doing the right thing? Define right. I do not know. Then I cannot answer the question. Try a different one. Are we doing the thing that will let me live? Yes. Okay. Okay. By 11 that morning, a lawyer Elena had never met was sitting in the study with two other men in suits and a thick stack of papers, and Adrien was asking her calmly if she wanted to go over the prenuptial agreement before or after she met with her new personal attorney, and Elena realized with a small shock that she now had a personal attorney. By 1 in the afternoon, she had signed nothing. She had read everything. She had asked 3 questions that surprised even Adrien. She had requested 2 changes. Both had been accepted. By 3 in the afternoon, she was in a small, private salon downtown, getting her hair cut for the first time in her adult life by someone who was not her mother's preferred stylist. And when the woman asked her how she wanted it, and Elena opened her mouth to say exactly what her mother had always told her to say, she stopped. I want it shorter. How much shorter? Enough that nobody will recognize me for a second when I walk into a room. The woman smiled. Itba, that I can do. By 5:30, Elena was looking at herself in a mirror in the master dressing room of the East Wing, in a navy blue dress Callista had picked out the night before and overruled her on this morning, with hair that fell just below her jaw in a clean, sharp line, and a pair of small pearl earrings Mrs. Petrov had pressed into her palm without explanation. She did not recognize herself. That was the point. The door opened behind her. Ready? Adrien asked. No. Good. The ones who say yes always embarrass themselves. Let us go. She took his arm. At 6:43, the black car pulled up to the Astor's brownstone on East 78th, and a doorman opened the door, and Elena stepped out in her navy blue dress, and she walked up the steps on the arm of Adrien Vulkov, and she did not let her hand tremble, and she did not look at the ground, and she did not rehearse a speech, and when Claudia Astor opened the front door and met her eyes with a small, careful, appraising smile, Elena smiled back with the calm confidence of a woman who had been doing this her entire life. She had not, but she was doing it now. Claudia Astor pressed both of Elena's hands in both of hers and said very quietly, so only the 3 of them could hear, "Your sister arrived 20 minutes ago. She is in the parlor. She is pretending to be fine. She is not. Thank you for telling me. Do you need a moment?" Elena thought about it. No. Then in we go. Elena stepped into the foyer. 3 dozen heads turned. And across the room, through the open doors of the parlor, sitting on a green velvet settee with a glass of champagne in her hand and a smile carved into her face like a knife into soap, Victoria Whitmore raised her eyes and looked at her sister for the first time since the door had slammed behind her the night before. The room went quiet. Victoria stood up. Elena did not move. And then from somewhere in the back of the parlor, a voice Elena had not heard in over a year called out, warm and delighted and completely oblivious to the temperature of the room. "Elena, my God, is that you?" Elena turned, and the color drained from her face, because standing in the doorway of the parlor in a dark green dress and the same pearls she had worn to Elena's christening was the one person in Elena's entire childhood who had ever told her she was beautiful. Her grandmother, who Margaret had told her for the last 4 years was dead. 11:19, Elena's hand went numb on Adrien's arm. "Grandma." "Oh, my girl, my beautiful girl, look at you." Eleanor Whitmore was 81 years old, and she walked across the Astor's foyer with the steady step of a woman who had spent 4 years in a place she should not have been. Her eyes were wet. Her hands were shaking. She did not stop until she was close enough to take Elena's face between her palms. "They told me you were dead," Elena whispered. "I know. For 4 years, Grandma. 4 years. I know, sweetheart. I cried at your funeral. Mother made me wear black." "There was no funeral, Elena." "What?" "There was no funeral. There was no burial. There was no body because there was no tziyuth. Your mother put me in a home in Connecticut and told the family I had passed in my sleep. I have been writing you letters every month for 4 years. Every single month. I am guessing you never received a single one." Elena could not breathe. Behind her, somewhere across the room, Victoria made a small, sharp sound. Not a word, just a sound. The sound of a woman realizing the game had just changed and she was not holding the cards anymore. Adrien's hand came to rest very lightly at the small of Elena's back. He did not push. He did not pull. He just let her know he was there. "Grandma, how are you here tonight?" "Because a man came to see me 3 weeks ago." Elena turned her head slowly and looked at Adrien. He did not deny it. He did not confirm it. He simply met her eyes and waited. You, Elena said, you knew. I knew. You knew about my grandmother. I knew about your grandmother before I knew about you. The lawyers who handled her placement made a filing error, a small one, small enough that no one in your family noticed, large enough that one of my people noticed. That was the first red flag on the Whitmore file. That was the thread I pulled. You pulled a thread, and you found my entire family. I pulled a thread, and I found you. Eleanor was still holding Elena's face. She turned her head slowly and looked at Adrien Vulkov for a long moment. She did not flinch. She did not look away. She studied him the way a woman studies a thing she has been told to fear. You are him. I am. You got me out of that place. I did. You paid for the car, and the driver, and this dress. I did. And you did not tell her. I did not tell her. I wanted her to see you tonight without having time to prepare a face. Eleanor smiled. It was a small, dry surprise smile, the kind old women give when they have just been outmaneuvered by someone they did not expect to outmaneuver them. Young man, yes, ma'am. You are either the best thing that has ever happened to my granddaughter or the worst. I have not decided yet. That is fair. I will decide by the end of the night. That is also fair. Elena was still not breathing properly. She felt like she had swallowed glass. She felt like every bone in her body had been replaced with something thinner. She felt Victoria's eyes on the back of her neck the way a person feels a gun aimed at them. Grandma, come sit with me. Yes, my girl. Yes. Eleanor took her arm and together they walked past the frozen center of the room, past Claudia Astor, who had stepped back 2 polite paces to give them space, past a dozen guests who were suddenly very interested in the carpet toward the parlor. Victoria was still standing, still holding her champagne, still wearing that carved-on smile. Elena did not look at her. She guided her grandmother to a small settee in the corner, sat beside her, and took her hands. You are going to tell me everything. I'm going to try. Right now, before anyone else talks to me tonight, before anyone else pretends to be family. Right now. I need every piece of it. All right. Eleanor took a slow, careful breath. It started 9 years ago when your grandfather died and left the Whitmore holdings in my name instead of your father's. Elena blinked. What? Your grandfather did not trust Richard. He did not trust him with money. He did not trust him with women, and he did not trust him with you girls. So when he died, he left everything to me with an instruction that it was to pass to you and your sister equally on my own death. Not to Richard, not to Margaret, to you two. Do you understand what I am saying? I do not. Your father has been living off an allowance your grandfather left him, nothing more. Every dollar you have ever seen spent in that house has been spent on my sufferance. I signed the checks. I approved the vacations. I paid for Victoria's schools. I paid for yours. Everything was mine. Grandma, 4 years ago I told your mother I was going to rewrite the will. I told her I was going to cut Victoria out and leave everything to you. Elena stopped breathing. Why? Because I was watching what that house was doing to you, Elena. I had been watching for 22 years, and your sister had turned into something I did not recognize. And your mother was the reason, and your father was too much of a coward to stop any of it, and I had made up my mind. I told your mother at the Sunday lunch in March in the sunroom over tea. I told her to her face. 3 weeks later, I was in a home in Connecticut with a diagnosis I do not have. A diagnosis you do not have. They told the staff I was in advanced dementia. I am not. I never have been. Your mother paid a doctor. Your mother paid a nurse. Your mother paid a lawyer who told me if I tried to leave, I would not like what happened to me, and I believed him because I had just watched my own daughter-in-law put me in a car with a smile on her face. Elena felt the walls of the room narrow. She did that to you. She did that to me, and she told you and your sister I was dead. I have been writing to you for 4 years. 4 years of birthdays, Elena. 4 years of Christmases. 4 years of watching the calendar and wondering if you thought of me. Every letter was intercepted. I did not know that until 3 weeks ago when a young man came to my room with a folder of them and placed them in my lap and told me he was going to take me home. Elena turned her head very slowly and looked at Adrien again. You have the letters. They are in a drawer in your new room. I did not put them on your bed. I did not leave them out. I wanted her to give them to you herself. Elena could not speak. Eleanor squeezed her hand. Listen to me, my girl. I am not asking you to do anything with what I just told you tonight. I am asking you to hear it. That is all. Tonight is for you. Tomorrow is for your mother. Grandma. Yes. I am going to ruin her. Eleanor looked at her granddaughter for a long moment. Yes, she said, I think you are. And across the room, still standing in the doorway, still holding a glass of champagne that she had not sipped in several minutes, Victoria Whitmore turned on her heel and walked fast toward the front door. She is leaving, Adrien said quietly. Let her. You do not want to speak to her. Not here, not tonight. Tonight is not about her anymore. Good. Elena stayed on the settee with her grandmother for almost an hour. Guests came by one at a time to pay their respects. Not to Adrien, not to the Astors, to her grandmother. Eleanor Whitmore, it turned out, had been beloved in this city once, and there were men and women in their 70s and 80s in that parlor who had been told she was dead and were seeing her for the first time in 4 years, and one by one they came over, and one by one they wept. And one by one they looked at Elena and said, Your grandmother has missed you, dear. Your grandmother has missed you so much. Elena held her grandmother's hand the entire time. Adrien did not leave her side. He did not speak unless he was spoken to. He simply stood there, a hand lightly at her back, and let the room understand, without him saying a single word, that Elena Whitmore was not alone anymore. At 9:40, a small, brittle woman in a black dress pushed through the front doors of the Astor house. Margaret Whitmore. She had not been invited. She had come anyway. She walked into the foyer the way she had walked into every room of Elena's childhood. Chin up, eyes cold, jaw set. She took 2 steps into the parlor and stopped because her mother-in-law was sitting on a settee holding her younger daughter's hand, and in 4 years of careful, expensive lies. That was the one image Margaret Whitmore had spent every single day trying to prevent. Eleanor, Margaret breathed. Hello, Margaret. How? A gentleman came to collect me. A very polite gentleman. I am told you have met him. Margaret's eyes snapped to Adrien. You. Adrien did not answer. You had no right. You had no right to interfere with a private family medical matter. It was not a medical matter, Margaret. How dare you? It was a crime, Margaret. I have the paperwork. I have the falsified diagnosis. I have the lawyer who signed off on the involuntary placement. And I have a very long recording of the conversation you had with that lawyer in November of the year you put her in. I have everything. Margaret went white. You cannot. I can, and I will the second you make me. Elena. Do not, Elena said quietly. Elena, listen to me. You do not understand what is happening. This man is using your grandmother to manipulate you. He is using all of us. You do not know what he is capable of. I know exactly what he is capable of, Mother. He is capable of finding my grandmother. You lost her on purpose. He found her on purpose. I know which one of you I owe. Elena. Do not say my name again tonight. Margaret's lower lip started to tremble. It was a trick Elena had seen her mother use 1,000 times, a practiced, delicate little quiver that had ended every argument Elena had ever tried to start in her life. It had always worked. It did not work now. Elena looked at her mother the way her mother had looked at her 1,000 times. Calmly, distantly, like a piece of furniture that had finally been noticed and found to be broken. Go home, Mother. Elena, go home. If you do this, I am already doing it. If you do this, you will never see your father again. I have not seen my father in 12 years, Mother. He has been sitting at the same table as me, but I have not seen him. So that thread is empty. Try another one. Margaret opened her mouth. She closed it. She looked at her mother-in-law, who was smiling, actually smiling, a small, tight, satisfied smile like a woman watching a long, slow, patient plan come to fruition. Margaret turned. She walked out. She did not slam the door behind her. She was too careful for that even now. The room was silent for a long moment, and then Eleanor squeezed Elena's hand one more time and said very quietly, "That was a good one, my girl." Elena laughed. It came out watery. It came out real. At 10:30, Elena helped her grandmother into the back of Adrien's car, and Adrien's driver took Eleanor to the east wing of the estate where Mrs. Petrov had at some point in the last 3 hours prepared an entire suite of rooms for an 81-year-old woman that no one had told her existed. Adrien had told her. Adrien had told everyone, so Elena rode home in a second car with Adrien beside her, and for the first time since she had met him, she leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes, and after a long moment she said without opening them, "You should have told me." "I know." "About my grandmother." "I know." "You let me walk into that room without warning me." "I did." "Why?" "Because if I had told you, you would have spent 3 days preparing a speech, and you would have walked in with a face made of glass, and your mother would have broken you before you made it to the parlor. I needed you to see your grandmother first. I needed the shock to be in your favor, not hers. You used me." "I did." "Do not ever do that again." "I will not." "I mean it, Adrien. If you know something about my life, you tell me. Even if you think I am not ready, even if you think it will hurt me, you tell me. Because every person I have ever trusted has decided without asking me what was good for me to know and what was not, and I am done with it. Do you understand?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Yes." "Say it." "I will not keep information about your life from you again. Even when I think it will hurt you, especially when I think it will hurt you. You have my word." "Thank you." She opened her eyes. He was watching her. "Adrien." "Yes. Thank you for my grandmother." He did not answer. He did not need to. At 11:15, Elena was in her grandmother's new room, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching the old woman arrange a small leather photograph book on the bedside table. Pictures of Elena as a child. Pictures of Elena's grandfather. Pictures Elena had never seen because they had not been in her mother's curated family albums. "Grandma." "Yes, my girl." "Who is this?" Elena pointed at a small sepia photograph. A young woman in a summer dress, maybe 19, maybe 20, standing in front of a stone wall and laughing. "That is me." "You were beautiful." "I was. I also did not know it. Nobody ever told me. I spent 40 years thinking I was plain." "Who told you?" "Your grandfather. He was a good man. He was a great man, Elena, and he would have been very, very proud of you tonight." Elena's throat closed. "Grandma, I have to ask you something." "Ask." "The will." "Yes. You said you were going to change it." "I did. I changed it before I went into that home." "What?" "I rewrote it 2 days before Margaret put me away. I had my lawyer come out to the house. She did not know. Nobody knew. The new will was lodged with a firm in Boston your mother has never heard of, and it has been sitting in a safe for 4 years. Everything that was going to Victoria now comes to you. Everything." Elena stared at her. "Grandma." "Yes." "How much is everything?" Eleanor took her granddaughter's hand, lifted it to her lips, kissed her knuckles, and said without blinking, $87 million. The room went very still. "Grandma?" "Yes." "Does my mother know?" "Your mother believes the old will still stands. The one that gave half to you and half to Victoria, with Victoria in effective control until you both turned 30. She believes that because that is what I told her while I was playing dead in Connecticut. It was the only piece of leverage I had. It was why I stayed alive. I was not going to die in a home with that woman thinking she had won." Elena's hands were shaking. "Grandma, I'm going to tell you one more thing tonight, and then we are both going to sleep because I am old, and I have had a very long 4 years, and I would like a cup of tea and a pillow." "Okay." "The young man in the hallway outside this door." "Adrien." "Yes, that one. Listen to me very carefully. I do not know yet if he is a good man. I have not decided. I told him so, but I will tell you this. He did not take me out of that home to impress you. He did not show me to you tonight to make you trust him. He took me out of that home in January, Elena, 2 months before he ever walked into your parents' dining room. He did it because it was the right thing to do, and he did not tell anyone. Not me, not you, not the press. His people moved me. His doctors examined me. His lawyers verified the falsified diagnosis, and then he let me rest for 2 months in a private home in Westchester before he brought me here. He did that before he had any reason to believe you would even speak to him. Do you understand what that means? Elena did not speak. It means, Eleanor said softly, that whatever that boy is, whatever his business is, whatever the city says about him, he did something kind in the dark, and he did not plan to tell you about it. He only told you tonight because I asked him to. So when you decide what to do with him, remember that. A man who does kind things in the dark is either a very good man, pretending to be a hard one, or a very hard man trying to become a good one. You are going to spend the next few years finding out which. Eleanor patted her hand. Now kiss me good night. Elena kissed her grandmother's forehead. She did not cry. She was too full to cry. Good night, Grandma. Good night, my girl. Welcome home. Elena walked out of the room and closed the door softly behind her. Adrien was at the end of the hallway, not watching her, not waiting for her, simply standing at a window, looking out at the lawn with his hands in his pockets, the way a man stands when he is trying to give someone privacy in a room with no walls. She walked up to him. Oh, Adrien? Yes. You pulled her out in January? Yes. Before me? Yes. Why? He did not answer for a long time. Because I was sitting in a meeting in December, he said, when one of my lawyers mentioned the Whitmore placement, and he laughed about it. He laughed, Elena. He said it was clean work. He said Margaret Whitmore had gotten away with it clean. And I went home that night and I could not sleep because I kept thinking about the old woman in Connecticut who was not sick. And I thought about the granddaughter in Long Island who did not know, and by morning I had made a call. That was before I knew your name. That was before I knew your face. I did it because it was wrong and no one else was going to fix it. Elena looked up at him. And then you found me. And then I found you. And you decided. And I decided. They stood there for a moment. Adrien, yes. I am not ready to say what I am going to say in 6 months. I know. I am not ready tonight, or next week, or probably next month. I know. But I am going to say it eventually. I will wait. Good night. Good night, Elena. She walked down the hallway to her room. She opened the drawer of her bedside table. 4 years of letters were inside, tied with a plain brown string, unopened, the paper yellowed at the edges, each one addressed in her grandmother's careful, deliberate hand. Elena sat on the floor of her room. She untied the string. She began to read, 11:21. Elena read until the sun came up. 47 letters, 4 years, every birthday, every Christmas, every small moment Eleanor Whitmore had wanted to share with her granddaughter and had been stopped from sharing. By the 12th letter, Elena was crying so quietly her own tears were soaking the paper in her lap. By the 23rd letter, she had stopped crying. By the 40th letter, something had hardened inside her chest that she did not recognize yet, but she knew it was permanent. At 6:15 in the morning, she picked up her phone. She unblocked her sister's number. She did not call. She did not text. She wanted the line open because she wanted Victoria to be able to reach her when she finally heard what was coming. Elena wanted her sister to have every chance in the world to pick up a phone and say the one sentence that might have saved her. Elena already knew her sister would not say it. At 7:30, she walked downstairs in jeans and a gray sweater, no makeup hair pulled back in the same plain way her grandmother had worn hers in the sepia photograph. Adrien was at the table reading something on a tablet. He looked up. He took her in. He set the tablet down. You read them. All of them. How are you? I am ready. Ready for what, Elena? Ready to stop being the daughter in that house? Ready to become whatever is going to come next. I have spent my whole life asking permission to exist. I am not doing it for another day. I want to file Adrien. I want to file today. Against your mother. Against my mother. For what she did to my grandmother. For fraud. For elder abuse. For the falsified diagnosis. For every penny she spent out of Eleanor's accounts. Every penny, Adrien. I want it back. It will take months. I have months. It will be public. I want it public. It will destroy your father. My father offered you $2 million to throw me away 2 days ago. My father destroyed himself. I am not the one doing it. Adrien looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood, walked around the table and pulled out the chair next to his. Sit, eat. We will call the lawyers at 9. At 9:03, 3 attorneys were sitting in the study, and Elena Whitmore was signing the first legal document of her adult life. A complaint. civil and criminal. The criminal side would be handled by the Attorney General's office, and one of Adrien's attorneys had already placed a call the night before. The civil side was in Elena's name and her name alone because her grandmother had insisted. I want her to fight this one herself, Eleanor had said at breakfast, eating a piece of toast with the kind of appetite only old women who have been fed institutional food for 4 years can muster. I will testify. I will sit in a courtroom and look my daughter-in-law in the eye and tell a judge what she did to me. But the complaint is Elena's. The victory has to be hers. Elena signed. The pen felt heavier than any pen she had ever held. She set it down. At 11:15, the press release went out. At 11:17, Callista Marsh called. It is picking up already. Your mother's office just issued a denial. It is an embarrassingly stupid denial. Her publicist is not my caliber, you understand. Also, Miss Whitmore. Yes. Your sister just arrived at the gate. Elena closed her eyes. Of course she did. What do you want me to tell her? Elena thought about it. Let her in. Adrien on the other side of the room turned his head sharply. Elena, I will see her once, today, here on my ground, not hers. You do not have to. I know I do not have to. I want to. Callista, tell her I will meet her in the garden room. Nobody else? No lawyers, no witnesses. Me and her and one cup of tea that I am not going to drink. Miss Whitmore. Yes. You are very good at this. I am learning. Adrien walked her down to the garden room himself. He did not speak the whole way. At the door he stopped, took her hand and turned her to face him. You do not owe her anything. I know. You do not have to explain yourself. I know. Do not let her make you small. Adrien. Yes. I am not small anymore. He kissed the top of her hand, which was something he had not done before, and he walked away without looking back. Elena walked into the garden room. Victoria was already standing there at the window, her back to the door. She did not turn when Elena walked in. You took my life. No, Victoria, I took mine. You can have your life back. It is waiting exactly where you left it. You do not understand what you have done to me. I understand exactly what I have done to you. I have made you live for the first time in 29 years without me beneath you. That is all. Everything else you are feeling right now is just what it feels like to stand on the ground like a normal person. You will get used to it. Victoria turned. Her face was not the face of the sister Elena had grown up with. It was the face of a woman who had not slept. A woman who had been crying in private for 36 hours. A woman whose hair had been washed but not styled. A woman whose makeup had been applied with hands that shook. For the first time in Elena's entire life, her sister looked like a person. A small, cracked, frightened person. Elena did not let it move her arm. Sit down, Victoria. I do not want to sit. Sit. Victoria sat. You are pressing charges against our mother. Yes, for something that happened 4 years ago. For something you did not even know about until last night. That is correct. Elena, you do not understand what this will do to our family. I do understand. I have thought about almost nothing else since 5 this morning. I know exactly what this will do to our family. I am doing it anyway. Why? Because she put our grandmother in a home for 4 years, Victoria, and she told us grandma was dead. And you cried at a funeral that never happened, and so did I, and so did half of New York. You were there. Do you remember? Of course I remember. Do you remember that mother made you give the eulogy? Yes. Do you remember what you said? I said grandma was the best of us. You said grandma was the best of us, and mother let you say it, and she sat in the front row and she cried. She cried Victoria, while her mother-in-law was sitting in a bed in Connecticut being told she had dementia that she did not have. You see that, do you not? You see what kind of woman does that? Victoria did not answer. Say it out loud, Victoria. You see it. I see it. Then say it. She did something terrible. Yes, she did. Now, I have one question for you. Just one. And your answer to this question is going to decide the rest of our relationship for the rest of our lives. Do you want to answer carefully or do you want to answer fast? Carefully. Take your time. Elena sat across from her. Victoria took her time. Ask, she said finally. Did you know? What? Did you know that Grandma was alive, Victoria, at any point in the last 4 years? Did you know? The room went very still. Victoria did not answer for a long, long time. Elena watched her sister's face. She watched the muscles around Victoria's mouth work. She watched her sister's eyes move twice toward the door, the way a guilty person's eyes always move toward the door. Victoria. Victoria. I suspected. When? A year ago, maybe a year and a half, I overheard Mother on the phone. She was arguing with someone about a payment. I heard her say she is not going to live forever, Donald, and when she is finally gone, the problem goes away. I asked Mother about it. She told me it was a private foundation matter. I did not press her. You did not press her. Elena. You heard our mother say on the phone that your grandmother was not going to live forever. Our grandmother who was supposed to have died 3 years earlier, and you did not press her. I did not want to know. You did not want to know. I did not want to know Elena because I was going to inherit her half of the estate, and if she was alive, I was not. Is that what you want me to say? Is that what you want? Elena's breath caught. There it was. Out loud. In the open. The truth her sister had been running from since the moment she walked through the door. Okay, Victoria. Okay, what? Okay, that is all I needed. That is all I wanted to know. Elena, you are not going to tell anyone I said that. I am not going to have to. You just said it into the room, and the room has microphones because this is Adrien Vulkov's house. You just confessed on the record. Whether it is used is going to be my decision, not his, not the lawyer's, mine. And I have not decided yet. Victoria's face went white. You set me up. No, I gave you a chance. A real chance. I asked you one question, and I gave you 1 minute, and you told me the truth, and the truth was ugly, and now I know. I know what you knew. I know when you knew it. I know who you are. I have been trying to know who you are for 26 years, Victoria, and now I know. Elena, please. I want you to leave the city. What? I want you to leave New York. I do not care where you go. Los Angeles, London, Paris, anywhere. I will cover your rent for 1 year. After that, you figure it out. This is my one offer. You take it, you walk out of here, and I do not release what you just said in this room. You refuse, and I hand it to the Attorney General by Friday, and you go to prison alongside our mother. Your choice. You would do that to me. I would do that for me, Victoria. For the first time in my life, I am doing things for me. You were never going to be a part of it until I heard you tell the truth. You could have told me last night at the Astors. You could have told me this morning. You could have told me 10 minutes ago when I sat down. You chose not to 3 different times in 3 different rooms. That is who you are. I am not asking you to change. I am asking you to leave. Victoria was crying now, really crying, the way a person cries when they have been caught and they know it. Elena, do you accept the offer? Elena, yes or no, Victoria? I am not going to sit here while you negotiate. Yes or no? Yes. Good. Callista will be in touch this afternoon. Goodbye, Victoria. Elena. Goodbye. Elena stood. She walked to the door. Her hand was on the knob when her sister said in a small, broken voice, I was jealous of you. Elena paused. What? My whole life, I was jealous of you. Mother made me the favorite, and I was still jealous of you because everyone could see she was lying. Everyone could see you were the good one. Even when they told me I was better, I could see it in their eyes. They pitied you, and they were afraid of me, and I always knew which one was worse, Elena. I always knew. I just did not want to stop being the better one because it was the only thing I had. Elena stood at the door. She did not turn around. Then go find the thing that is actually yours, Victoria, because this was not it. She walked out. At 2:50 that afternoon, Margaret Whitmore was arrested at her home on Long Island. The charges were filed under the supervision of the New York Attorney General's office. Elder fraud, falsified medical documentation, financial misappropriation of trust assets. The photograph of Margaret being walked out of her own front door in handcuffs in a cream pantsuit was on the evening news by 6. Elena did not watch it. She was in the east wing of the estate, helping her grandmother unpack a cardboard box of old books that had been recovered from the Connecticut home that afternoon. Eleanor was humming. She had not stopped humming since Mrs. Petrov had brought up her morning tea. Grandma? Yes. Mother was arrested. I heard. She was taken from the house at 2:50. I heard that too. Mrs. Petrov told me. She is a very informative woman. I should feel something. You will. Not today. Maybe not next week. Eventually you will wake up in the middle of the night and cry about it, Elena, because she was your mother, whatever else she was. That is normal. That is allowed. But today you do not have to feel anything except what you feel. And if what you feel is nothing, then that is what you feel. I feel relief. That is allowed too. That night over dinner, Adrien slid a small manila folder across the table to Elena. What is this? A gift. What kind of gift? Open it. She opened it. Inside were the blueprints of a small stone cottage on a piece of land in upstate New York. 5 acres, a pond, a copse of old oaks. I do not. Read the deed. She read the deed. Her name was on it. Adrien. The land was purchased last week. It is not part of the estate. It is not a Vulkov asset. It is yours in your name, free and clear. And if you walk out of this house tomorrow with a suitcase, the land goes with you. I wanted you to have a place that was yours even if I was not in it. I want you to know you have somewhere to go that is not this. Elena looked up at him. You are telling me I can leave. I am telling you that you have been able to live since the morning after I brought you here. I just did not tell you because I did not want it to feel like a test. It is not a test. It is a door. You can open it anytime. Elena's eyes filled. Adrien. Yes. I do not want to leave. I know. Not because I cannot, because I do not want to. I know, Elena. Say something. I am glad. That is all you are going to say. That is all I am going to say tonight. Why, Mom? Because I made you a promise that I would not use kind words on you until you asked me to. You have not asked me to. When you do, I will have them ready. She almost laughed. She almost cried. She did both a little. You are an impossible man. I have been told. At 9 that evening, Elena walked out into the garden behind the estate in a coat that was too thin for the wind, and she sat down on the stone bench. Her grandmother had helped her pick out that afternoon, and she took her phone out, and she opened a blank text message, and she typed her sister's name into the recipient line, and she looked at the screen for a very long time. Then she closed the message without sending anything. She had nothing more to say to Victoria. Maybe she would in 5 years, in 10 years, maybe never. It did not have to be decided tonight. She sat on the bench. She breathed. Adrien found her there 20 minutes later. He did not announce himself. He simply sat down on the bench beside her, leaving space between them, and he did not speak. She spoke first. Adrien. Yes. I'm going to go back to school. Okay. Landscape architecture. It is what I wanted to study when I was 19. My mother said it was a servant's profession. She told me no Whitmore woman worked with dirt. She made me study art history instead. I hated every minute of it. I have not touched a pencil since the day I graduated. Where do you want to go? Cornell has the program I want. It is 2 hours away. Okay. I would commute twice a week. The rest of the time I would be here. Okay. You are not going to argue with me. Why would I argue with you? Most men would. Elena. Yes. I did not marry you to keep you in this house. I married you to get you out of the one you grew up in. She looked at him. Is that what we are? Married. Legally, not yet. Emotionally, I am not the one who decides that. You are. Adrien. Yes. I want to use the kind words now. He turned his head to her. Shaw. Tell me one. He thought for a long moment. He did not rush. He was not a man who rushed anything. You are the bravest person I have ever met, Elena Whitmore. And I have met people who have walked into bullets. What you did this week is harder than any of that. I have watched you for 4 months, and I have not once seen you take the easy door even when you did not know the hard one was open. You are going to build something with your life, and I am going to stand behind you while you do it. And if a day comes when you decide I am no longer the man you want to stand behind you, I will step out of the way without a fight because the point was never me. The point was you. It has always been you. From the alley with the cats onward, it has always been you. Elena did not answer for a long time. Then she slid her hand across the stone bench and she laced her fingers through his and she said, "Stay. I am staying. I mean for a long time." "I know what you mean, Elena." She leaned her head on his shoulder. He let her. They sat there together in the cold and the dark on a stone bench in a garden she had helped design that afternoon. And somewhere inside the house behind them, a light was on in her grandmother's room. And somewhere inside the city in front of them, her mother was sitting in a holding cell. And somewhere across the country, a sister was packing a suitcase. And somewhere inside, Elena Whitmore. In the quiet center of her chest, where her whole life had been folded into something small enough to be ignored, a woman was finally completely fully standing up to her full height for the first time. She was not her sister's shadow. She was not her mother's disappointment. She was not her father's bargaining chip. She was not a girl at the far end of a long table. She was Elena Whitmore. She had been chosen once by a dangerous man in a dining room full of strangers. And then later she had chosen herself. And of those two moments, only the second one had ever really mattered. She closed her eyes on that stone bench with her hand in his and she smiled. The shadow was gone. She was the woman now, and she was never going back.